morning, Ballarat and Western Victoria, and welcome to our Cup Day edition of The Morning Show. Now, live from Dowling Forest Racecourse, your hostess, Jenny Tudor.
Jenny. Tell me, what is the responsibility that you have as veterinary surgeon here on course at Dowling Forest?
Well, there are two main responsibilities. The first is to the horse, I guess,
yes,
and looking after his problems, her problems. And the second is to the punter, to see that they get the best deal. Now, with the horse, it involves, of course, during the race, we normally follow the race in case the horse is coming down and having to make decisions. After the race, there are usually odd lacerations and sprains, that type of thing that attention is called for. And some of them get tummy aches and cramps after the event too, and those things require some sort of first aid treatment from a veterinarian. And the other side of it, of course, is seeing that the punter gets a good deal, is that horses start in a sound form.
Right.
So if they happen to be lame on the way to the barrier, it's our job to inspect them and see whether they should start or not. And of course, when the race is over, we do sample some horses to make sure they haven't been given materials that might make them try a little harder or a little brighter.
Does that sort of thing happen very often these days?
No, I think we've only had one positive swab at Ballarat in the time that I've been here.
Well,
We've had a couple of trotting meetings, and every so often you'll see in the paper a few times a year throughout Victoria somebody's tried to use a painkiller or a brightener to help things along.
but it usually doesn't get past people like you.
Oh yes, it might do that because the reason for sampling is that you can't really detect that an animal's been given aspirin, for example,
Oh, I
or
see.
BTZ to make that sore leg feel a lot better. We can't really tell. And that's the reason for using the swabbing technique or the sampling technique to detect the drugs.
Do you swab every horse that gets a place in a race, or is it fairly random?
No, it's a random selection of horses that's made by the stewards, and they might swab 5 in a day or 3 in a day. We normally only swab winners, but occasionally if a favourite performs badly, we'll be asked to take the sample from that horse.
What about injuries themselves, the sprains, and I guess the worst that we ever see is the broken leg? Do they occur very often?
Yes, I suppose every race meeting we would attend a horse for some sort of injury. Most of them are leg lacerations. As you realise, they race very closely when they're coming around the turn, for example. They're travelling at about 35 mile an hour.
Pretty fast.
And they're going pretty quickly, and they do tend to get their legs jumbled up and they strike each other. They wear metal shoes and they often suffer lacerations from that. The other problems with broken legs and dislocated joints, that type of thing, fortunately is pretty unusual. It's not common, but we get them occasionally.
Sometimes before a big race, such as, for example, this year's Melbourne Cup, the horse Kiwi, of course, was declared unfit to race beforehand, which was a great disappointment, particularly to a lot of the punters. What constitutes a horse being unfit, other than the obvious things like it's got a dislocated leg or it has a really serious injury?
Well, to most people, of course, the horses that we pull out of a race, either on the day before or on the day, look quite normal to them.
They do. It's often, to the untrained eye, you see the horse on television and you think, well, it looks all right to me.
Yes. Well, the most common reason, of course, is that they're lame. That mightn't be very marked. They just show slight lameness. But that's sufficient to stop a horse from doing his best on the day. And the person backing that horse, and of course gambling is very large, and therefore that person is entitled to have a good run for his money.
Indeed.
So there can be just a minor lameness. Sometimes they're blemishes. They'll go down on a float on the way to the races and they'll have a large piece of skin torn off, a leg that are quite unsightly and that wouldn't be fair to ask a horse to race. Other times they'll rear over in the barrier and strain themselves or their back, or there is every possibility that they've done that and become quite stressed in themselves mentally, and there's some of the reasons we'll take them out. But in the case of Kiwi, of course, he did suffer an injury.
Yes.
The trainer said that he did a couple of weeks before the event, and with the amount of money that's put on a racehorse in the Melbourne Cup, he can't be left in if there's any doubt. There were 3 veterinarians used to give their opinion, and of course you have to think of the other end. If that horse had pulled up lame, last in the field, there'd have been a greater outcry than the one over the fact that he was pulled out before the race.
Indeed, there would. Are race horses more prone to injuries generally, or to illnesses, or any kind of thing like that?
Oh no, I don't think that's so. I think it's only the circumstances under which they work and compete that increases the risk of injury. It's simply like athletes. They tend to have far more leg problems than a sedentary fellow like myself who just walks down Sturt Street.
Indeed. Dr. Fulton, thank you very much for being with us today. I very much hope that you're not needed too much and that we're not going to have any...
They're right across the track. Bellian Club, Bocnasan out deep, and Penny Edition coming home well. Bocnasan grabbed the lead in the Cup. Warri Symbol fighting back. Warri Symbol fought back on the fence to beat Bocnasan. Penny Edition on the outside third. They're followed then by...
And in spite of the weather, it really still was an exciting race. Brian, you're a little better off this year. I gather last year one of the things you were using to keep warm was a rather large coffee pot under your coat.
I must admit, Jenny, I've never been so cold in all my life. It didn't help very much, but it did help a bit.
The conditions today, we've had a little sprinkling of rain, but it's cleared up, it's fined up, and there's actually blue sky out there now. What are the conditions like? Are they pretty fair?
I reckon they're not bad at all. On the way up from Melbourne, there was no rain at all, but just what it is here now, and I feel as though that we're going to be lucky enough, even though they were predicting in Melbourne some thunderstorms and hail, but I think that at the moment at least you're going to get to the Cup time with the beautiful weather. It's cool, but it's, you know, what do you expect when you get out into the nice open air of Ballarat?
Brisk, to say the least. I guess the cooler conditions really must suit the horses better. They don't get as stressed.
I think one thing we must take into account too, that the track rating today is fast.
Right.
And that's something that is most important for those people who are thinking of having a bet. You don't have to worry about looking for those little W's against the horses' names, not at the moment anyway.
No, well, also we noticed that Pat Hyland rode the winner of that race then last year's Cup, and also the year before, so he's going for a treble of Cups.
Going for the hat-trick.
Yeah, and he's also the present day riders. He has won 3 of the Ballarat Cups, so Pat's really the form jockey if you want to find some little omen to back him, and he's on Loyal and True, which is not without a chance.
It's going to be very hard to beat. I saw it here last Saturday week in the Ballarat Cup, and it missed the start hopelessly. It was a huge run. It was tailed off last on the turn and flew home as well.
Well, that's good, because I was wanting to know why it only just won, but you've told us.
Half a dozen lengths.
A lot of people today are tipping the winner of the Bendigo Cup, which ran last week, of course, Toyd. What do you think about that one?
Yes, it's going to be hard to beat. It's been very well looked after as far as penalties go. It toyed with the opposition in the Bendigo Cup. It won very easily. It's Cromarty Bay who ran second to it is out now, unfortunately, and it's going to be hard to beat. But I think the unfortunate part is going to be well under the odds. It's going to be too short, no value there.
No, well, I like Toyd, really. I think that he's going to be very hard to beat. He'll be well ridden by Craig Dinner, who's our leading apprentice almost, because Darren Gorsey, Gauchi, or whatever school you went to, he's pretty good too. But Craig's riding in good form, and he understands Toyd, and he rode him to perfection, didn't he, at Bendigo?
Magnificent ride.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be hard to beat, Jen.
The way the odds are on Toyd, you won't make squillions with a 50-cent bet. So what's a good each-way bet?
I think Loyal and True each way. It will take, with the 50-cent trifectas that people can take now, and Quinellas, you've got to throw Toyd in, and perhaps Loyal and True in the top weight. Rose and Thistle Des, he's better than his form showing of late.
Well, that's right. A horse that can run fourth in the Melbourne Cup's got to be very hard to beat in any race, and the Ballarat Cup is really a time-honoured event, and he can do some good. But I like Toyd and Loyal and True. Quinella, I'll go. You go the trifecta. Okay. I'll go the easy way. I'd only get 2 in.
There we are. The experts have spoken. Brian and Des, thanks very much. We're looking forward to seeing you later in the day.
Lovely to speak with you, Jen.
We'll take a break and be right back to talk to a lady jockey, Bridget Payne. We'll have our competition, and we'll be speaking to the...
Well, we have more varieties of gambling. We have, throughout Australia, we have poker machines, we have legalised bookmaking, off-course betting, lotto. There are very few countries that in actual fact offer all of those facilities.
I guess when you stop to think about it, there are a great many ways of having a flutter. It doesn't just have to stop at the horses, does it?
No, that's right, and TAB has experienced over a number of years a lot of competition. Because one stage the only legalised gambling was TAB, bookmakers and on-course totalisators. In the last 7 years we've experienced soccer pools, bingo, Pat's Lotto. It's been quite a lot of competition at TAB.
The whole works. I imagine you're still doing rather well though.
We're doing quite well at the moment. We have fought back, and we're trying to be very aggressive in our marketing because we realise that it's not just a matter of sitting back and waiting for people to come into the door, but we have to go out and try to find them. That's right.
Tony, talking now in figures, how much approximately is spent on gambling each year here in Victoria?
In Victoria, you're looking last year at $2.3 billion.
Billion?
$1 billion. That's billion being 1,000 million. Now, TAB, in actual fact, we were short of $1 billion. We took $980 million last year. So we are the predominant bet type or gambling form. We're just around about 42% of the total amount spent on gambling.
There must, in that case, be quite a number of people who really do spend very, very heavily, because you could immediately discount most people under 18. They wouldn't spend a lot on gambling.
Well, under 18, they're not allowed to.
That being the reason. And there would be a lot of adults who just never have a bet. So the section of the community that does bet, and we're seeing some of them now lining up at the TAB, they must bet rather heavily.
Our surveys indicate that we have around about 25% of the adult population that bet regularly with us. And I suppose you could say that...
Yes. Tell me, how many, on a day such as this, Ballarat Cup Day, which in this area, naturally enough, is very busy, how many lines and operators have you got working today just to man the phones and to get everything moving?
Well, we have 435 operator positions in telephone betting.
Goodness me.
And today we would be rostering at a point in time, especially before the Ballarat Cup, every one of those positions.
So you're quite a big employer, really, too, aren't you?
We are a big employer, yes. We have in telephone betting alone, we have a roster of 1,200 casual staff. And
wow, great many. So what do you think that, or do you know what you're holding today in funds for the TAB?
Well, we would expect, if we're talking about Ballarat Cup, we would be expecting to hold around about $2.3 million to $2.5 million. We would like to see $2.5 million reached today. Last year we didn't increase as much as we would have liked, but we expect that we would be getting towards the 2.5.
What would that have been, say, 10 years ago?
10 years ago, I think we were taking around about, maybe about 300 million. So we're now just under $1 billion. So we've increased by nearly 4 times.
Whichever way you look at it, it's big money, and I hope everyone who's having a flutter today, obviously not everyone can win, but I hope a lot of people